Let's get a word on those big stories. Benedict Spence is with us, Conservative commentator. Benedict, good morning to you.
Morning, Ian. How are you?
Oh, very good. Nice to have you with us again. Let's touch on that point, because we know that Nigel Farage, as I mentioned a moment there, is talking about a big spending spurge. He's had a big old donation, I think about 9 million quid, from one person that's thrown clearly a lot of money by anybody's measure into the reform coffers. 5 million quid of that he's likely to spend in a double or quit strategy for those local elections. What are you making of that?
I think that this is important for reform. Ultimately, they have to demonstrate that the momentum that they've shown last year is still with them. I think that, there were some people that were questioning whether maybe or not they'd hit a bit of a glass ceiling, given that they sort of peaked at around 30%. But of course, that's always going to be A, pretty impressive, and B, pretty difficult to get any further on, especially when the second biggest party is the Conservatives. But I think that they need to be able to demonstrate at the local elections that this is a more sustained thing, that it is widespread. They also need to be able to do that in order to demonstrate the futility and the silliness, actually, of the attempts to delay other local elections that have been going on in this country. To be able to show to people, look, if these had been sort of allowed to continue, we might have even done even better, and that this government is running scared. So I think that, that there are several reasons as to why it is that they need to do that, and use it as a sort of a proxy, if you like, for a general election, because we're still a very long way, theoretically, from a general election, A. And B, what you'll get then, if Reform do very well at the local elections, is that they rock up in local authorities across the country, and then they find that they're not actually able to do anything, because most power does rest with central government, at which point Farage will then be able to turn around and say, look, it's not enough to just vote Reform at local level. You're going to have to do it at a national level to give us the power to change things.
Indeed. Although, that said, Wales will be the big litmus test. It's more than a litmus test, of course, because they will be running, should they win, an entire administration where there is tangible and very vital and important elements that they will be running, the NHS being one of them.
Yeah, of course. It's going to be a bit of a dry run, I suppose, for Westminster, if you like. But again, there are limits on what it is that they can actually achieve. But also, touch upon what's going on in Wales and the state of the NHS in Wales. Yeah. It's going to be one of those where, if they were to be able to wrest control from Labour, which is no mean feat, it's going to take a very long time to improve the situation in Wales, in the Welsh NHS. So again, it'll be one of those where Farage, if he's able to be successful, will turn around later on and go, well, look, I'm going to need a lot more than simply, a local election or a devolved government to enact the sort of change that I want, because he'll probably turn around and say, Wales needs assistance. He needs help from Westminster, from national government, at which point he'll then be able to say, A, give it to me, and B, where was the help all of these years?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the phone call from, or the interview where Keir Starmer says, this morning I phoned Mr Farage and congratulated him on his massive win in Wales. I don't know whether that will actually happen, Benedict, but of course it's all, it's optics, it's totemic, and it's, for Keir Starmer, potentially career-ending, of course, because whilst Labour will remain in power, can the Prime Minister of the day? We're looking at predictions for 2026 at the moment, and there is a very real possibility that Mr Starmer will have to walk the plank this year.
There is, although, of course, we still sat there wondering who it is that Labour would end up replacing him with. And, the irony, of course, of all of it is that their preferred candidate, or the preferred candidate of many people, Andy Burnham, A, is not an MP, and B, were he to attempt to become an MP, Reform, again, Farage, would probably throw the kitchen sink at whatever seat it was that he was trying to secure, to stand in. So, whilst you're absolutely right, Starmer is a dead man walking, but it seems that he's going to be able to sort of keep walking and bleeding out for a very long time, because there's just no real mechanism for replacing him and no immediate outstanding candidate. Now, this is a problem that the Conservatives had when they got rid of Boris Johnson, and everybody was sort of looking around going, the options are pretty thin on the ground. There's nobody really who captures the imagination. The only one really that you can see is Wes Streeting. And of course, the biggest problem with Wes Streeting is he's basically told everybody that he wants to be leader. Starmer will be able to see him coming. And also, Labour MPs don't tend to like ambitious people. They're showing that by taxing everybody who's got any ambition in this country.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely right. And they will make what, I mean, I don't know, I would suggest it was a fatal error for their long-term chances come the next general election. But if they bring back an Angela Rayner type character, which for some reason makes people on the left have that lovely warm feeling in the pit of their belly that, oh, Ange is back, you know, we're in safe hands. Goodness knows who anointed Angela Rayner as the Oracle of Delphi or some, you know, great voice in the world of geopolitics and impact on domestic policy, etc. But that is the image many people in Labour have. It will make them feel good. They would have their first female leader. It will be a working class girl who tells it like it is. She doesn't take any prisoners, as if that's enough in itself. So it might make Labour feel good. Don't know about the rest of the country.
So Angela Rayner is a pastiche of a sort of a working class woman. She's a caricature that's been created by, I think, mainstream media outlets based in Westminster, many of whom are not working class or northern, and they quite like the idea of her, and they think that she sort of represents everything that is, everything that is to recommend itself about that tendency of the Labour movement. And you're right, you know, lots of members of the party themselves, I think, have drunk the Kool-Aid and bought into this. The problem is, actually, the average person is neither a journalist nor a member of the Labour Party. From my personal conversations that I've had with working class people all across the country, Angela Rayner is not particularly liked. There is a perception that Angela Rayner has a lot of time and a lot of interest in Angela Rayner. And this is the thing, I think, about this interpretation of working class communities. A lot of people down in London think that because she's a bit gobby and a bit bold, that's what working class people like.
Correct.
I don't think that's what working class people like at all. They like, they like dignity. They like hard work. They like a little bit of honesty, and they like a little bit of humility. And frankly, given that Angela Rayner had to leave government due to a lack of honesty, and given that she's so high profile because of a lack of humility, I'm just not convinced that she is the great white hope of the of the Labour movement.
No, I would agree completely, but you know, who knows, because anything can happen over there at Labour HQ at the moment. We'll keep our eyes over the course of 2026. We're asking predictions for this year in terms of politics and news-based stories. We'll take some more calls and comments on that. 0344 499 1000. Another headline that Labour certainly wouldn't want to see, bearing in mind that Keir Starmer and the likes of Rayner and Reeves have talked a lot about looking after working people. We're the party of the working classes, we are true to our core, etc. And yet we're hearing today that poorest UK households are getting poorer, which is not really a headline that is much in keeping with the spirit of a Labour government.
No, it's not. And of course, this is part of the problem, which is that a lot of people on the left just seem to view sort of wealth as a bit of a zero-sum game. They believe that a finite amount of wealth exists and that you have to sort of share it round equally. Otherwise, everybody is suffering as at the hands of the super rich. They don't realize that wealth is something that you can in fact create, and that it's rather nice to try and create it so that you can actually have a bigger pie to share in the first place. We've known, actually, I think, that living standards are falling in this country for some time. That's when we say cost of living crisis. That's sort of government code, government speak, comms speak for saying people are going to feel the pinch and they're going to get poorer. When you juxtapose that with the failure of services to work, then that means that sort of basic amenities that lots of people require aren't there. That also contributes to their poverty. So if you've got this sort of twin approach of wages being suppressed, energy prices going up, lots of other prices going up, and services going down, of course people are poorer off under Labour. Now, this is a direction of travel that did start under the Tories, but Labour came in promising a different approach to politics, and all they seem to have done is doubled down on the increase of relative poverty of people in this country. The way you solve it is by giving them more money in their pockets. That means less tax, that means higher growth, and it's the last thing that the government seems to be wanting to do.
100%. We're going to talk more on that throughout the course of the programme, and we're taking your calls and comments. Also, this story, just a final one, Benedict. I mean, we keep reading nonsense like this, but here's just the latest instalment of human rights carry-on type of cases that just keep crossing our desk. It's the story of Fuad Awale, who's a convicted double murderer who took a prison officer hostage. He demanded the release of Abu Qatada, just to give you a flavour of what he's about. But he decided he was going to take the prison authorities to court because of the way he was held in prison. He was transferred to a specialist separation unit for the country's most dangerous prisoners after he and another inmate ambushed the prison officer, threatened to kill him unless Qatada was released. This is the kind of character we're dealing with here. But he claimed the segregation that he was put in, designed to prevent him from harming other officers and radicalising other inmates, breached his right to a private life under Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights. There it is. He claimed that he'd suffered severe depression as a result of being denied contact with other inmates. The judge said, "Quite right, sir. We'll pay your legal bill and we'll give you 7,500 quid in compensation." I mean, seriously, what is going on?
I mean, if the British government had any balls, it just wouldn't pay.
No.
It just wouldn't pay, and it would just take whatever fine was imposed on it from outside and say, we're prepared to pay the fine, which of course we pay to ourselves, rather than pay the compensation to this individual. The thing is, we've been told for decades now, not just here but in Europe as well, that the far right is on the march and that we will have to be on our guard in case we get a far right government.
Yeah.
And yet, at every turn, it is made more likely that we will end up with something approximating a far right government by decisions made by that sort of political and media that lead to things like this happening. Nobody believes in their right mind that somebody who has attacked a prison officer, has been segregated for the safety of prisoners and other members of the prison staff, should be getting compensated. They are a dangerous individual, and yet a force from outside of the democratic process is able to weigh in and say this person deserves it. As I say, sooner or later, people are going to vote for a government that says we're just going to junk this sort of thing, and they'd be right to.
And currently our government is run by a man that used to kind of defend these kind of characters, which just makes it a little bit of icing on the cake of this story. Benedict, thank you. As always, great to have you on with us. Benedict Spence, political commentator, with us on the programme. Thank you to him.